A man was walking, he was lost and walking around in the hot desert for about 5 days. And on the sixth day, on a very hot day, well, actually they were all hot days, he finds himself at the house of a preacher. He's tired, he's thirsty, he's exhausted. He falls at the door of this house, and the preacher brings him in and nurses him back to health. And finally, the day comes when he's feeling good enough, and he's wanting to go to town. And so this traveler asks the preacher where directions to get to the nearest town, and the preacher gives him the directions and offers to lend him his horse to get there. And the preacher says, but there's something special about this horse, so I need to give you specific instructions. And he says, this is a very special horse. In order to make it go, you need to say, thank God. And in order to make it stop, you need to say, amen. Well, the traveler was very anxious to get to town, and so he said, yeah, I got it. So he gets on the horse, and he says, thank God. And sure enough, the horse starts walking. So after a little bit, he's feeling a little bit comfortable, and he says a little bit louder, thank God, thank God. And the horse starts trotting. And again, he's feeling a little bit comfortable, and so he says, thank God, thank God, thank God. And sure enough, the horse is now at a full-blown run. Well, all of a sudden, the man looks up, and he sees that he is heading straight towards a cliff. And so he needs to stop the horse. He says, whoa! But the horse doesn't stop. He tries everything. Stop! Whoa! Stop! He's pulling on the rein. Nothing happens, and finally, and that cliff is coming up quickly. Finally, he remembers, and he says, amen! And sure enough, the horse stops a mere 2 inches from the edge of the cliff, nearly tossing that traveler over the horse's head. Well, his heart is beating fast. His heart is beating, his brow is sweating, right? I mean, he was scared. So he sits back in the saddle, and he wipes his brow, he wipes his sweating brow. He says, oh man, thank God. Thank God. So you get it? Okay. All right. So this is my entree to being, we should all have been remembering, at least over the last couple of days, to be thankful, since we just are coming off of the holiday that has that name, Thanksgiving. But really, Thanksgiving and being thankful should not be relegated to one Thursday a year. Wouldn't you agree? That really the act of being thankful needs to become part of our daily spiritual practice. Because if we want to create our amazing lives, if we want to enter into an idea of living more fully, more abundantly, more prosperously, more in harmony, if we want to experience health and vitality, if we want to experience success and joy and closeness and all that we want to experience, the act of being grateful is really key. It's key to unleashing the good that is within our lives. So President Kennedy said this. He said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest form of appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. And so it's actually in the living of our gratitude that is really the highest form that we can show. Living that sense of appreciation and joy and gratitude. And when we can live from that, there's a lot of benefits. And primarily, gratitude, thankfulness, is good for us. It increases our sense of well-being and our sense of happiness. Now, many of us equate happiness with our circumstances. And if I would ask, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? Now, depending on what's going on in your lives, you might answer that from a 1 to a 10. Some might say, well, I'm at a 2 because this is going on in my life. Or I'm at an 8 because this is going on in my life. And so we've been taught somehow to equate our sense of joy and happiness and fulfillment with what's going on in our lives. So if our lives are going well, we're happy. And if our lives are full of challenges, or even one major challenge, we're not so happy. But is that really the truth? It's our attitude. It's our attitude that really is the impetus for our happiness, not our circumstances. When we can find within every situation the nugget, the joy, the truth beyond what we see, that is living our gratitude. We always have a choice on how we can see things. So let me give you 2 examples. One example in my own life. 2 weeks ago, my whole department moved to a cubicle farm, from offices to a cubicle farm, and I got the exact worst seat. And trust me, I agonized over this. And so my back into my cubicle is where everyone comes in and out. So there's no privacy, and there's a lot of distractions. And I've spent a lot of time, if you would ask me at work, what's your happiness factor, Janet? I might say, oh, it's about a 2. I have the worst seat in the house. And so by Tuesday of last week, so this is only the 2nd week, I had spent and I'm trying to be grateful, because here's some good news. It's close to our subject files. I can go in and out unnoticed if I wanted to. And it's close to the restroom. But all that great gratitude did not quite overcome this other feeling that I had of, I have to tell you, I was a little bit in my own little pity party. A pity party of one, because I at least was mindful. I didn't want to complain too much. I came home and complained to Caitlin. But by Tuesday, I was so exhausted with all of this machinations going on in my mind about how out of 65 people, I am the one person who got this one worst seat, right? For me. And so I was allowing my circumstance to determine my happiness in that direction. Even though I was entering into some gratitude, that gratitude for me at that point wasn't quite enough to allow me to overcome the circumstance. But I have a choice at every moment. So when I'm exhausted on day 2, I have to let it go. I have to let it go because I'm getting no work done and it's affecting my health. It is what it is. It's just a seat. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So we have a choice. We can always remember, and I can always remember, that there's a lot more to be grateful for than to be sorry for. I told this story at the Interfaith Thanksgiving service, and it was about my prayer partner, Debbie. So she had a trip right after Hurricane Sandy. She had a trip to go to Long Island. So it was just after the hurricane. So she called me, and together we prayed for a positive outcome, that everybody that she would meet, that she would be a healing presence, and everything would unfold perfectly. When she got back, here's what she reported. So when she arrived and she got the rental car, the guy behind the counter was apologetic because he could only give her a car with a half of a tank of gas. But she was grateful for that half tank of gas because of the gas shortage. She knew she only needed a half a tank. And the man had a sense of gratitude about him, that other than the electricity, he was happy to report that his neighbors and his family, they came through the hurricane just fine. And then she got to the hotel, a hotel that she's been in many, many, many times before. And when she checked in, she noticed that there was something different. When she looked around, there were children and families, there were dogs, there were insurance agents, there was beverage and treats all around. Again, due to Hurricane Sandy. And so when she checked in behind the counter, she was in a state of gratitude because they still actually had a room for her when they could have been completely occupied. And then she found out from the check-in girl, this clerk, who she's dealt with many, many times, just a delightful, positive person named Allison, that Allison had lost everything. But instead of complaining, Allison was grateful that she worked at a hotel that would put not only her, but her folks up for as long as needed. And she was grateful that the next day they were coming to take the dead fish out of her basement so they could start pumping. And then when Debbie met Allison's mom the next day, she realized where Allison got this positive attitude from. Because Allison's mom, also who had lost everything, said, you know what? It was time to declutter anyway. And I am ready to start over. Now, we all have something to be grateful for. We can allow our circumstances to inform our happiness, or we could take what it is that we have and build on that and be grateful for it. So again, it is our choice. Are we going to allow what's going on in our lives to dictate whether or not we can be happy, or can we take charge of our own minds, regardless of what's going on in our lives, and choose to be happy anyway? Choose to be grateful anyway. Because here's what's happening. It's so easy to complain. It seems to slip off the tongue so easily. And to what purpose sometimes? Purpose. It doesn't fix anything. And it's as if what goes on so I'll speak sometimes for myself. If it's in my mind, it's on my mouth, especially when it comes to complaining. But if it's in my mind, is it on my mouth when it comes to praise? Maybe. But sometimes it's easier to talk about rising insurance costs. It's easy to talk about what's going on in the economy. It's easy to talk about whatever it is politically that's going on. Can we change any of that stuff? No. So why we talk about it and get ourselves all worked up about it, what's the purpose? We all want to be happy, but complaining doesn't ever make us happy. Right? Complaining just serves to keep us stuck. So Eckhart Tolle says this. He says, acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for abundance. Acknowledging the good that we already have. Acknowledging that we have so much more to be grateful for than to be sorry for. We all do. Regardless of any circumstances that might be going on, if we really look back, anything that's going on in our lives is temporary. This too shall pass. And it does pass. We just forget that it passes. Instead, we want to live in that zone of complaining. And so sometimes I wonder, do we complain because we have problems? Or do we have problems because we complain? So it's all about focus, and it's all about perspective. So, I've talked about before about an avalanche of appreciation. So we can enter into an avalanche of appreciation, or we can enter into a cornucopia of complaining. But when we are complaining, when we find things that are wrong, we all want to be happy. That doesn't increase our happiness factor. As a matter of fact, complaining may derail us from our dreams. It may stop us from moving forward. When we are complaining, when we are allowing ourselves to allow our happiness level to be affected by what is going on around us, it's a sure sign that we have forgotten the truth. And what is the truth? That there is only one thing. That one thing is God. That one thing is infinite in its power, in its focus, in its force. That one thing is God. That one thing is spirit. That one thing is never-ending abundance. That one thing is magnificence and harmony. That one thing is joy and love and laughter. That one thing is delight. That one thing is freedom. That one thing is creation. That one thing is wholeness. And that one thing is you and me. The activity of the divine, of God, whatever you want to call it, is going on in you, around you, as you, and something to be grateful for, something to be joyous about. So when we're stuck in the complaining mode, we've completely forgotten that God is what we are. When we're stuck judging by appearances because our lives are not exactly 100% how we think they should be at this moment, we have simply forgotten that we are the demonstration of the infinite in form, and that we have not really taken control of our minds, but we have allowed maybe old habits, old patterns of looking at what's wrong instead of looking at what's right to become our focus and allow that to create more for us. When we look at our external circumstances and judge anything about that, allowing ourselves not to be happy, not to be grateful, it is because, again, we have forgotten that there is a power for good in the universe, greater than we are, and that we are always using it. And that power responds to us, that creative power responds to us by corresponding. So when we're negative Nellies, when we're complaining, when I'm singing the blues, poor me, my desk is the worst, what am I going to get? Do I want to allow myself the luxury to have those kinds of thoughts, knowing that I am invoking a law that is going to reflect back to me exactly what I am putting into it? I don't think so. But in those moments, I have completely forgotten that I am a powerful creative being. And we all have, I'm assuming, those moments when we forget that we're powerful creative beings and that we're stuck in the mess. We're stuck in the mire, and we think that our external circumstances have the ability to affect us. As we read, as we speak, I mistakenly thought that outside things controlled me. We've mistakenly thought that. The control, and sometimes that's kind of a negative word right there, control. But the creative intelligence that is everywhere present is right where we are. It is right within our own minds as well. So we do have so much to be grateful for as opposed to be sorry for. Okay. So complaining and gratitude cannot coexist. They can't coexist in the same heart, in the same mind. We can't complain and be grateful at the same time. We get to choose. We always get to choose. So which will we choose? Sometimes it's just a habit. You know, it's not that it's just a habit of thinking. We have buttons that get pushed, right? Somebody says this, I immediately get mad. Somebody does that, I immediately get my feelings hurt. Somebody does this, and I'm feeling rejected. These are just patterns. These are habits. These might be beliefs that we thought were the truth, but they're not the truth. The truth is that right where we are, the presence and the power of the divine is. That's the truth. The truth is that there is a perfect pattern for us right here and right now. We just need to focus on it. We need to focus on it and bring it forward. We need to remember that an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of thanksgiving, an attitude of joy, an attitude of love, an attitude of acceptance for ourselves and an acceptance for everyone else will lift us up into that avalanche, if you will, of appreciation, and not take us down into that cornucopia of complaining. We all feel better. I mean, just think in your minds, I'm complaining about the weather and I'm appreciating the weather. No matter whichever one it is, which one makes you feel better? We all feel better when we have a sense, when we're coming from a sense of appreciation, of joy, of gratitude. We do. Yet, we somehow enter into this idea of complaining, of judging, of comparing, of feeling less than. That's all part of this complaining mode. Judging and comparing, feeling less than. None of that is ever the truth. We need to reconnect with that God essence that we are. Reconnect We always have a choice. It's about perception. Are we going to look for the good? Are we going to remember day by day, moment by moment, that we have more to be thankful for than to be sorry for? Or are we going to just forget all of that and allow our old habits to come to fruition and maybe kind of not build a condo, but go through that times of despair and allow our circumstances to dictate how we're going to feel? It is a choice and it is perception. So when we feel like maybe we want to complain, when we feel like, oh, we're judging the outside circumstances and we're not feeling happy, and we don't, and we want to really turn that around. We want to give thanks for everything, because we could adopt this attitude that everything in my life is unfolding perfectly no matter what. We could have that attitude. Everything in my life is unfolding perfectly no matter what. No matter what's going on. It's unfolding as it should. There's freedom in that. There's no need to complain in that. It's unfolding perfectly. But when we have a hard time of remembering that, we can maybe remember this story. The story of a girl who wrote a letter to her mom and says, "Dear Mom, I'm sorry I haven't written sooner, but my arm really has been broken. And my leg has been broken too. And it broke when I jumped out of the second story of our dormitory because there was a fire going on. And we were lucky because the service station attendant happened to be driving by and saw the fire and called the fire department, so they were there and they were able to put out the fire pretty quickly. But I ended up in the hospital with my broken leg, and the service station attendant named Paul, he came to visit me every single day. And we become very, very good friends. And I hate to report, Mom, but I have to report this, but I'm pregnant. And Paul and I are going to get married just as soon as he gets a divorce. And otherwise, I'm fine. I hope that you and Dad are doing fine, too. Love, Susie. P.S., Mom, none of the above is true. But I wanted to let you know I got a C in sociology and I failed chemistry. I just wanted you to read this letter in its proper perspective." So we can always have a proper perspective. Are we focusing on what we want, or are we focusing on what we don't want? Are we focusing on the good that's in our lives, or are we focusing on the stuff that's going wrong in our lives? Are we focusing on the joy that we have and all the good that there is around us? Or are we focusing on what is wrong, how it is that we're not successful, why it is that we're not moving in the direction of our dreams, how we are compared to somebody else? It's a matter of perspective. And we need to choose moment by moment by moment by moment. And I am going to close with this. It's a little meditation, or devotional. I'm going to move over here. By Dr. Ernest Holmes. So it's written in the first person. If you want to close your eyes and take this into your heart, feel free to do so. Otherwise, you can keep your eyes open. I live in an expanding universe that is potent with divine possibilities. On every hand, the presence of God is beckoning to me, inviting my growth. There is nothing to hold me back, for its mind in me presses me forward into larger living and greater thinking. I steadfastly increase my awareness of God in my present world, and I joyously accept an expanding, unfolding life. I keep the windows of my soul open to new and fresh ways of knowing truth. I let go of the little to accept the more. Where I am, I make my demonstration of truth. I no longer wait for the future to solve my problems. I live in omnipresence, and right now my good is at hand. What I seek is seeking me. The idea I need is now in my consciousness. and the law of mind is producing it. I relax and realize that today is good, tomorrow is better, and each day is God's day. And so it is.